California Governor Gavin Newsom is now calling his city's homeless encampments unacceptable, which is odd since he's the guy who, made them acceptable, turning sidewalks into red carpet events for drug addicts, thieves, and unemployed CNN anchors. On Monday, he urged cities to ban the camps from sidewalks, parks, and other public areas. So after years of denying the problem, he's now pretending to see it.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know.
Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher didn't just roast Gavin Newsom. They torched him like a failed Hollywood script. This wasn't some friendly panel banter. This was a full-blown ego demolition. Newsom got ripped apart with sarcasm sharper than the price of gas in LA. From his obsession with looking good to the disaster trail of his policies, they didn't hold anything back. His so-called leadership shredded into pieces like leftover recall ballots. Bill and Greg weren't discussing politics. They were doing surgery on his entire career, without anesthesia. If you thought Newsom's hair was slick, wait till you see how slick they slid through every corner of his resume, exposing one hollow promise after the next.
And the Dems are now the party of disorder. Turns out the only system they had was wokeism, and it rotted any basic principles the party had to begin with. Which is why, like Gavin himself, they're left looking at 2028's hopes going up in flames. And this time, no one is going to help them put it out.
I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex.
Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher didn't just mock Gavin Newsom, they obliterated him like a flopped Hollywood screenplay. This wasn't a light-hearted panel exchange, it was a complete takedown of his ego. Newsom was torn to shreds with sarcasm sharper than LA's gas prices. From his obsession with image to the wreckage left by his policies, nothing was off-limits. His so-called leadership was ripped apart like discarded recall ballots. Bill and Greg weren't having a political debate, they were dissecting his entire career raw. If you thought Newsom's hair was smooth, just wait until you see how effortlessly they sliced through every inch of his record, exposing empty promise after empty promise.
While Newsom lurks outside the White House like a greedy relative in the parking lot of a hospice. Maybe he is the perfect replacement for Joe. Just like him, the corruption is baked right in.
This wasn't just a takedown, it was a broadcasted political reality check. Greg didn't simply enter the studio that day, he charged in like someone fined for inhaling California air. Newsom turned into the joke of the evening, and Gutfeld came armed with a full comedy toolkit. With that mischievous grin, Greg kicked things off by labeling it the Barbie Governor Diaries, poking fun at Newsom's polished image. A Malibu Ken running a state without the guidebook for basic governance. He quipped that Gavin looked like he was trying out for a Napa Valley ad, peddling wine and phony grins instead of real outcomes. And that was just the opening scene.
Denying the problem, he's now pretending to fix it, which is like putting on a condom as you're leaving a whorehouse. Who hasn't?
What's a condom?
But as always, when a far-left Dem runs for national office, he acts like a Republican. This is where the left is really pro-trans. Suddenly, they grow.
According to Greg Gutfeld, California under Gavin Newsom isn't being governed, it's being curated like a hollow Instagram profile. Gutfeld likened Newsom's leadership to someone spraying air freshener in a house that's literally burning down. He ridiculed how Newsom keeps peddling eco-fantasies while the streets are engulfed in disorder, with skyrocketing homelessness, surging crime, and neighborhoods that resemble sets from post-apocalyptic movies. While used needles piled up around City Hall, Newsom kept delivering speeches about the ozone, as if good vibes alone could scrub the streets clean.
An evil snake motherfucker. I don't know how to describe it. You see what he just did there, and Bill got it right. Somehow it's snitching if the parent finds out. If the teacher says, oh, your kid has been going by other names and changing pronouns and dressing up this way, you don't know about that as the parent. That's the snitch. It's the parent's job to raise the child.
Gutfeld didn't hold back. He bluntly asked how someone could fixate on carbon emissions while completely overlooking the human waste scattered across San Francisco sidewalks. He ripped into Newsom's contradictions like a chef chopping onions, quick and chaotic. The man speaks like he's here to rescue the earth, yet manages the state like Lex Luthor's eco-obsessed relative. One moment he's urging farmers to ration water, the next he's funneling millions into flashy vanity projects that wouldn't even make it past a Netflix pitch meeting. And just when it seemed like Greg was wrapping up, he went straight for the scalp, literally. He quipped that Gavin's perfectly styled hair had more structure and budget than California's entire education system. The only thing more solid than Newsom's hair gel, Gutfeld joked, is his inflated ego, and even that's starting to show cracks. Gutfeld didn't pull any punches. He said, every time Gavin Newsom speaks, it's like watching a TED Talk hosted by someone who just discovered Wi-Fi and still calls it the internet box. He's got the over-the-top hand motions, the rehearsed delivery, and buzzwords straight out of a self-help seminar, but with no real depth. It's like someone crammed an encyclopedia into a fortune cookie, pumped it with Botox, and told it to govern a state.
So Newsom is fed up with tent cities, the crime, the urban decay? No, he's not mad about that stuff. He's mad you noticed. It's like a criminal telling a jury he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox and Friends.
Gavin's speeches are so empty, even watching paint dry feels like a blockbuster by comparison. And somehow, they're still too irritating to ignore as background noise. When it comes to climate change, don't even get Greg started. He joked that Gavin could be standing in front of a burning Walgreens, flames in the air, smoke curling between his bleach-bright teeth, and he'd still claim it was all due to climate change. Gutfeld mocked how Newsom has managed to pin rising sea levels on just about everything. Soaring crime, traffic jams, power outages, maybe even the price of oat milk. Greg quipped that given enough time, Gavin would probably credit solar panels for his hair highlights. And he wasn't finished. Gutfeld also blasted him over pandemic hypocrisy. While Californians were ordered to stay home and suffer, Newsom reserved a private dining room at the fanciest restaurant in town. He didn't just violate his own rules, he blended them into a Pinot Noir smoothie, sipping it with the grace of a ballet dancer raised on entitlement and organic kale. People weren't just leaving California. They were fleeing like passengers abandoning a sinking cruise ship.
It was looking bad there for a while, and we still don't have enough water in the Colorado River and all this stuff. Yeah. And then whenever I read 80% of the water goes to agriculture. Almonds. Right. No one ever asked you about almonds. I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex, is the teacher's job.
And Gavin? He was still standing on the dock, handing out pamphlets about how amazing the ship used to be. As businesses jumped ship and families loaded their lives into boxes, Newsom kept preaching about equity, like he was distributing promo codes for inner peace. Gutfeld joked that the last thriving industry in California was U-Haul, and even they had run out of trucks going east. People weren't just relocating, they were fleeing, and the moving vans couldn't keep pace with the exodus. California's new leading export? Gutfeld said it was taxpayers, burnt out and buried under sky-high rent. Then the tone shifted. In walked Bill Maher, wearing his trademark expression, like he'd just endured a dinner party where someone mentioned Karl Marx halfway through the salad course. You could almost hear the sarcasm leaking out of his sigh.
They like the show, okay? And the man who made it acts like he had nothing to do with it. Yeah. It's pure government grift, shoving you down a flight of stairs and then making you pay for the handrail. We've been lied to for years that homelessness is all about affordable housing. Fentanyl isn't the problem, it's that loan officer at the bank. Yet as we walked to work, we never saw families or kids, just men. So strung out on fentanyl, they looked like they were playing Twister.
But when it came to roasting Gavin Newsom, Bill Maher brought the heat. He opened with a cutting remark, saying Newsom looked like the walking fantasy of what coastal elites imagine competence should be, all aesthetics, zero backbone. A politician who could grace the cover of Vanity Fair while the state crumbled behind him. Underneath that Kendall sheen, Maher said, was an empty shell, fueled by catchphrases, environmental guilt, and recycled speeches from Davos. Gavin didn't come across as a true leader. He sounded more like someone who just got back from a yoga retreat and forgot to bring his soul with him. He might smell like progress, but it disappeared faster than the power during one of California's infamous blackouts. Then Maher really dug in, joking that Gavin's biggest political accomplishment was convincing Californians that their hardship was actually a moral badge. "You're not broke, you're sacrificing," Maher mimicked. And people bought it. He called it exactly what it is, a failed state dressed up in a fabulous filter. Instagram-ready chaos, but still chaos. Maher didn't hold back on Newsom's bizarre energy agenda either. He mocked Gavin for treating electricity like a luxury, something to be rationed for regular folks. Unless, of course, it's time to fire up another posh conference hall so he can deliver yet another over-polished climate sermon.
See, Newsom wasn't just ignoring the problem, he enabled it because Dems were in a woke crouch, terrified of their loony base. But now that he's seeing the White House, he's got a brand new act, a common-sense centrist. Just a soccer dad in khakis, fed up with crime and chaos. It's all bull***. A costume, a political drag show, and the kids this drag queen is reading to are the...
Bill could hardly believe it, a state drenched in sunshine, and yet somehow, California still manages to be stuck in the dark, both literally and politically. Maher ripped into Newsom's leadership approach, saying his policies were like trying to treat a paper cut by amputating the entire arm. Excessively dramatic, totally unnecessary, and completely missing the core issue. When Gavin's presidential ambitions were brought up, Maher just chuckled. "This guy's got enough drive to power the entire electrical grid himself," he said. "But where's the actual progress?" He compared Newsom to a contestant on a reality show, utterly convinced he's winning, while the audience is practically pleading to see him voted off. Gavin thinks he's the next face of the Democratic Party, Maher smirked, but in reality, he's just a shiny new sticker slapped onto the same old bottle of empty promises and elitist fluff. And when it came to real challenges, housing, healthcare, education, Bill pointed out that Newsom always had a polished, poetic way of describing the issues, but never delivered actual solutions.
It's like the wildfires. Gavin blames climate change when it was his corrupt bureaucracy. Since the Palisades fire, which destroyed 6,000 buildings, only 4 permits have been issued for rebuilding. Did climate change cause that? Hell no. So like the fires, Newsom let homelessness run wild. He allowed tens of billions of dollars to be swallowed up by a maze of consultants, nonprofits, and bureaucrats who created poop.
Maher went straight for the throat, tearing into Gavin's education record like a fed-up parent at a chaotic parent-teacher night. California's school system, he said, ranked somewhere between a full-blown catastrophe and please homeschool your kids if you love them. Somehow, Gavin Newsom always found the time to scold other states while his own was crumbling beneath him. Bill Maher mocked him for behaving like America's substitute teacher. Charming grin, expensive suit, dramatic pauses, but absolutely no command of the classroom. And when the pressure mounted, Newsom's go-to move during a crisis was to hold another press conference. Complete with a golden curtain, of course, where he'd toss out buzzwords, flash that signature smile, and disappear before anyone could hit him with real questions. Maher ridiculed the act, saying Newsom's idea of leadership had more to do with looking competent than actually being effective. On homelessness, Maher said California's strategy resembled a game of whack-a-mole. Only instead of a hammer, they used bloated government checks, and instead of solving anything, the issue just shifted 3 blocks over. It was all appearance, no substance. Then Gutfeld jumped in with a punch of his own, saying Newsom throws money at problems like a party DJ hurling glow sticks into a crowd, flashy, distracting, and utterly useless when the power goes out. And when it came to crime, Greg didn't pull any punches either.
I feel like the last couple of years you've like purposely picked this fight with the red states. I mean, the DeSantis. Yeah, but I don't want to live in the Civil War country.
I agree with that.
You know what?
Well,
but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, oh, this is a blue state and that's a red state. And I don't want to live in that country. I like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the
He said Gavin was like a lifeguard giving detailed speeches on perfect diving technique while sharks were already circling the pool. The chaos kept escalating, and Gavin kept performing like a motivational speaker on a sinking platform. Under Newsom's leadership, California didn't just blur the boundaries between right and wrong. It completely erased them. Gutfeld ripped into the state's shift from justice to justification, saying leniency had become standard policy while accountability was treated like some forgotten legend. In Gavin's version of California, crime wasn't criminal, it was just misunderstood. If someone stole your car, congratulations. You were now an unwilling participant in a bold equity experiment centered around urban hardship. Then Bill Maher returned with his trademark smirk, saying Newsom governs like a guy who believes hugging the issue will magically make it go away. He marveled at how far the headlines would contort themselves, like human pretzels, to paint pure incompetence as forward-thinking brilliance. Maher joked that if Gavin tripped over a traffic cone, the media would praise it as a revolutionary step in urban discovery. He claimed Newsom had the press wrapped tighter than a pair of vegan yoga pants, soft, flexible, and always ready to cushion his fall. Every time he slips, Maher said, the media lays out a mat and calls it part of his personal growth journey.
Used to sell maps of celebrity homes, not landmines. Now, instead of sightseeing, tourists play hopscotch so their shoes don't get hepatitis. And when residents complain, they're called cruel. And now we're supposed to believe Gavin? Hell no. All the problems of the last decade were based on his and his party's.
And that smug grin Gavin wears like a luxury fashion accessory. Gutfeld said it's the only renewable energy source California has successfully harnessed. He torched Newsom's perpetual air of unearned superiority, comparing it to someone proudly correcting you on the difference between gelato and ice cream while sipping an $18 almond milk latte. Gutfeld didn't ease up. He joked that if arrogance could extinguish wildfires, Gavin Newsom would have solved every crisis in California by now. The man gives off self-satisfaction like it's solar-powered. Meanwhile, the state continues to burn, both literally and politically. Maher closed his roast with a devastating final blow, calling Gavin the love child of noble intentions and awful execution. He said Newsom's the kind of leader who promises the moon, shows up with a glow stick, and then looks genuinely shocked when everyone's still sitting in the dark. Bill likened him to a $20 avocado, flawless on the outside, but once you take a bite, it's just pure overpriced letdown. And then came the killer line. If Gavin ever becomes president, Maher laughed, the entire country will finally know what it's like to be a San Francisco taxpayer, broke, baffled, and strangely proud about it. But neither Gutfeld nor Maher was done, not even close. They made it clear more was coming.